Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. I am the Cody. This is the 12th episode of the Cody MMA Uncensored. Now, I know I promised I would post it last night, but you see, the Cody is sick. He doesn't feel good, and it's Florida. It's really hot. No one wants to turn on the air conditioner, or the air conditioner won't work, but I'm not pointing any fingers. So, in the background, you will have fans. And yes, you might have to deal with some armpit hair and some flabby, Cody, because it's hot, man. I'm sick. But I'm here. I'm doing the show. I'm going to make it as lively as possible, even though I'm feeling under the weather and I feel like my head's about that big. So, and for those of you making big head jokes, kiss my ass. So, anyway, but this is the Cody MMA Uncensored. This is episode 12. We're going to talk about the UFC on Versus 5 review that happened this past Sunday. We're going to talk about an unfortunate passing in the world of MMA. We're going to talk about a huge deal that UFC has just done. And we're going to talk about, finally, people asked me to talk about it because I haven't mentioned it, and it debuts next month, so I'm going to talk about it now. The Ultimate Fighter. I won't, I'm going to talk about some of the notable fighters. There'll be no spoilers. The fighters I talk about are not officially in the house, because you do have to fight your way into the house this season. So I want everyone to know it's not a spoiler. So, anyway, but yeah, let's get cracking.
Y'all know me, still the same OG, but I've been low-key, hated on by most of these niggas with no cheese.
UFC on Versus 5 took place this Sunday. We had a retirement, we had a statement made, and we had some pretty impressive preliminary cards, which, let me talk about a couple preliminary fights. I was very impressed with Ed Shortfuse Herman and his submission over Kyle Noke. Kyle Noke was somebody I thought was, he was moving up in the rankings. Kyle Noke is a very seasoned fighter. I believe he could have easily won his season over the Ultimate Fighter, Team Liddell versus Team Ortiz. So, and I thought I wanted Ed Herman to win because I'm an Ed Herman fan, but I thought he would struggle with Noke, and I thought Noke would go on to win the decision. But Ed Herman kept Kyle Noke on the defensive the entire fight. He had a very active guard. He showed a little bit, it looked a little wild, but you could tell he's been working on his striking. And he caught a seasoned grappler in Kyle Noke. Kyle Noke is, I believe, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's very versed in submissions himself and got caught in, I believe it was an inverted heel hook. But that was, Ed Herman is starting to really open some eyes, including mine, because I thought after his loss to Aaron Simpson and that controversial loss to Alan Belcher that Ed Herman was just going to be an undercard guy filling out, being a name for the up-and-comers to beat, like Kyle Noke. But, he's impressing me. He says he wants a top 10 guy now. I don't see that happening unless they keep Yasuhiro Akiyama in, because I would love to see Ed Herman fight him. I still want to see Ed Herman versus Chris Levin. I've been dying for that fight forever, but those guys are friends. They trained together at Team Quest in the past, and I don't see that happening. Same thing with Nate Quarry. I haven't, I looked it up. I wanted to talk about it on a future show, like, where have they been? Nate Quarry did not get released from the UFC, so I'd like to see him fight him, but again, Team Quest. As far as who next for Ed Herman, I would love to see him fight Alan Belcher again. He fought Alan Belcher to a split decision. I believe Ed Herman won that fight, but Alan Belcher was given the nod. But Alan Belcher is about to fight Jason McDonald. I would like to see him fight Jason McDonald again. Ed Herman was Jason McDonald's first fight in the UFC. Kind of shocked everyone with submitting someone like Ed Herman, but other than that, I really don't know who he can fight next. A lot of top middleweights are, taken at the moment, like Tom Lawler, another good fight I would like to see him in. And he's fighting Chris Weidman in, I believe, an Ultimate Fight Night. I believe he's going to be fighting on the Fight Night with Shields and Ellenberger. But, yeah, but bad for Kyle Noak, but Kyle Noak will be back. He's a good fighter. You know, I expect him to, you know, still be here in the UFC, still, you know, fighting name people, and I believe he can beat a lot of people in the middleweight division. I'm not saying the upper echelon guys, but I have a lot of hopes for Kyle Noak. I'm a big fan of his too, but I'm a bigger fan of Ed Herman. So, yeah, great Ed Herman win. But another undercard fight I wanted to talk about was the Jared Hammond CB Dalloway fight. Okay, let me tell you something about CB Dalloway. After the Ultimate Fighter 7, I said CB Dalloway, and I've been saying on the forums for a long time, people at the Lights Out Show know I've said it. I thought CB Dalloway would be like the Kenny Florian of the Ultimate Fighter 7. Kenny Florian, you know, he lost in the finals, but then, since then, he has only lost 3 times, and I believe about a double-digit number of fights. 2 of them were title fights against top guys like Sean Shirk, BJ Penn, and then he got out-wrestled by the most boring fighter on the planet, next to John Fitch and Gray Maynard. So, but Kenny Florian, who ran through pretty much everyone in his division until he got to title shots. So, I thought CB Dalloway was going to be that guy. I thought CB Dalloway had the skills, he had the wrestling, he had the submissions, he had the striking. I thought he was going to be a guy who could come in here and beat some of these middleweight, you know, he would start at the lower pole, and then he would just keep going higher and higher and higher, and he would start fighting the guys like the Belforts and the Liebens and the Stans and the Sonins and the Santiagos and all those guys. And, you know, I thought he was going to, I'm not saying he would have won the title or anything, but I just had this feeling that he was the future of that middleweight division. Now, I'm sitting here kicking myself saying, well, what the fuck was I thinking? Because he has lost 3 of his last 4 fights, his lone win coming to a quick submission over Joe Dirksen. He got submitted by Tom Lawler, he got knocked out by Mark Munoz, and now he's been knocked out again. And I just don't understand how he lost to a guy like Jared Hammond. You know, no disrespect to Jared Hammond, but Jared Hammond was getting tossed around in the first round. You know, Jared Hammond is not the best fighter in the world, and I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he just fought, before he dropped down the middleweight, Jared Hammond got his ass kicked by somebody. I can't remember who that was. Sorry. So, again, sick, big head, you get the picture. So, but I'm just like, where did CB Dalloway go wrong? You know, part of me is thinking maybe he should, you know, go down to welterweight and see, you know, what he can get down there. But he kind of looks a little too big to get down to welterweight. But he doesn't seem that big of a middleweight either, to me, in my opinion. So, I don't know what I was thinking when when I said CB Dalloway would be like Kenny Florian. So, I'm disappointed. I can't believe he lost again. And, will he get kicked out of the UFC? I don't know. I think he does need to kind of sit back and, you know, reassess his career and see what he could do, because, I mean, Jesus. I mean, he was winning against Munoz. He was winning against Hammond. And, you know, he got caught in the guillotine by his takedown on Lawler. So, I mean, he's not a bad fighter. It's just that, I don't know. But, anyway, I'll talk about that long enough. Okay, moving on to the rest of the card, the main card. The first fight on the card was Dwayne Bane Ludwig, Amir Sadallah. Everyone but me was excited for this fight, and wow, ain't really much to say other than Amir Sadallah got the hell beat out of him. So yeah, I wouldn't say he dominated, but he didn't look like he could do anything against Dwayne Bud Ludwig. I just wanted to know what he was thinking. You know, Dwayne Bane Ludwig is a good grappler. You know, he's decent. He's not the best, but he's good. But what he is good at, or should I say great at, is striking. I don't know what, Sadallah is a good Muay Thai striker, but he is nowhere near the level of Bane Ludwig. So I don't know why he didn't try to take the fight to the ground. Why didn't he pull guard? You know, he has a dangerous guard. He submitted 3 people on the Ultimate Fighter 7. Well, 2 people. He just submitted CB Dollaway twice. So I think he has a very active guard. So I would have liked to see him pull guard in that fight, but he decided to stand up, try to make it a war, and Bang Ludwig kicked his ass, and that's pretty much all she wrote. I call Amir Sadallah the most overrated Ultimate Fighter winner in probably the history of Ultimate Fighter winners. Probably next to James Wilkes. James Wilkes, who won that Ultimate Fighter, I believe it was Season 9, Team USA versus Team United Kingdom. And I don't think he's ever won in the in the UFC since winning the Ultimate Fighter. So maybe Tim Ling will tell me if I'm wrong or not. But yeah, I just, you know, he hasn't beaten anyone that really is, you know, Phil Baroni. That's not saying much. Brad Blackburn, again, not saying much. Has he beaten anyone else? DeMarcus Johnson, again, not saying much. So, I mean, Amir Sadallah, what happens to him after this? Same thing with CB Dollaway. Is he out of the UFC? Is he still in? I don't know. As far as where both fighter goes from here, I would love to see Bang Ludwig fight Martin Kampmann, 2 of the best technical and crisp strikers in the division going at it. But before I start doing the show, I read that Martin Kampmann's going to be taking on Rick Story, so that's not going to happen. But still, that is a fight I would like to see. Maybe I would love to see him face Chris Lytle, but we'll talk about why that's not going to happen later. And I don't know. I don't know where Bang Ludwig goes from here. I don't think he's ready for the top echelon guys that, you know, might compete for the title, like a Condit or a Fitch or something like that. But maybe a Johnny Hendricks, you know, that'd be a good fight. So Johnny Hendricks, who knocked out Amir Sadallah in Amir Sadallah's UFC debut after winning the Ultimate Fighter 7. Amir, again, we'll talk about it later, but I would like to see him fight Dan Hardy. Guys, both, I'm kind of giving away the main event, but whatever. But, guys, both their backs are against the wall. Both are very good Muay Thai strikers. I'd love to see them go at it, and that'd be a very interesting fight. A fight that I think Dan Hardy would win, but it'd still be entertaining for the fans. So, bad for Amir Sadallah, good win for Bang Ludwig. Still don't know what Sadallah was thinking. He's a moron. I mean, you know, he's a funny guy, but maybe he should go to, you know, maybe he should be a stand-up comic. And, you know, wasn't Gerald Harris on his season a former stand-up comic and turned fighter? You know, maybe he should do a reverse that. He should be a fighter and then go do a stand-up comic, because he is kind of funny. So, yeah. Anyway, so moving on. Next fight on the card was Donald Cerrone versus Charles Oliveira. Many people thought it was going to be the fight of the night, you know, fight of the year. You know, Charles Oliveira, a very young kid in the sport. He has amazing jiu-jitsu. He submitted, I don't remember the guy's name. I don't know how many times he fought in the UFC before that fight, but he submitted in his UFC debut someone really quickly. So, and then he submitted Efren Escudero, which sent Efren Escudero out the door, former Tough 8 fighter winner. So, then he was submitted by Jim Miller. A lot of people thought, oh, he's just hyped now because he couldn't beat top-level guy like Jim Miller. He went in against Nick Lentz. He won that fight, but it was overturned because of an illegal knee. Now he's against probably his toughest opponent since Jim Miller and Donald Cerrone. And it went just like I expected. And, you know, Oliveira came out aggressive. Donald Cerrone, great counter striker, was able to keep him on his toes a little bit. And then once the round started winding down, he just unloaded on him and just was relentless. He wasn't really knocking him out. I think he hurt him with a body shot, if I remember correctly. Again, it's Wednesday. This was Sunday, so I don't remember everything. Again, Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, he swarmed on Oliveira, TKO'd him, just like I predicted. I thought Donald Cerrone would be too much for Oliveira. Oliveira has a bright future. Sharpen up his striking, sharpen up his takedown defense, though he doesn't really need takedown defense because of how good he is on the ground. But, you know, go in there. Timley, again, you need to help me, man, because I'm not as smart as you are when it comes to MMA. But maybe he should go to, like, American Top Team if he's not there already. I don't know what camp he's from. So I'm going to American Top Team, go to a Greg Jackson, go to Extreme Couture. You know, sharpen up his skills, and he could be a very, very dangerous fighter. But right now, Donald Cerrone on an incredible roll. He's 3-0 in the UFC since the WEC-UFC merger. And as far as what's next, again, kind of jumping the gun for the next fight. Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller. That'd be a great fight. Donald Cerrone, Clay Guida. You know, I hate Clay Guida. I would love to see Donald Cerrone beat the shit out of him. Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis. If Anthony Pettis wins his next fight against Jeremy Stevens in a couple UFCs, I believe it's UFC 136, which means we'll be waiting for a couple more UFCs before that happens. But yeah, you know, Donald Cerrone, you know, will he ever get to a title shot? Not likely, but he's going to be that guy to test the up-and-comers and really put the stranglehold on the title contenders and, you know, test them. But I don't think Donald Cerrone will ever compete for a title shot, as much as I hate to say that. Big Cowboy fan, you know. I thought he should have won the WEC lightweight title when he fought Jamie Varner. And, you know, I believe if judges knew anything about grappling, he could have won. He could have been easily given the decision against Ben Henderson in their first meeting, but then he goes out and gets submitted quickly by Henderson in their second fight, which totally threw me off balance. I didn't think that would ever happen. But yeah, but don't think he'll ever get to a title shot. But Donald Cerrone is a guy that will fill out a card. He'll have great fights. He could beat top guys. It's just, which top guy does he fight? Alright, moving on. This was the fight that I really, really wanted to see. I thought this was going to be a knock him out, drag out fight, but it turned out to be more one-sided than I anticipated. Ben Henderson dominates Jim Miller. Well, I don't want to go as far as say he dominated Jim Miller, but Jim Miller really didn't have any answers for Ben Henderson's takedowns. I thought this was going to be a stand-up fight because I thought both of them would expect it, you know, kind of respect each other's wrestling to where they'll just stand up more. But Ben Henderson took him down at will, beat on him, avoided submissions. He got knocked down in the second round, but you know, Jim Miller couldn't capitalize on that. And Jim Miller was in the fight. He was trying. He was hanging in there. He was throwing up submission attempts, and again, he did knock Ben Henderson to the ground. So, but Ben is a beast. I underestimated Ben. You know, I thought Donald Cerrone was going to walk right through him. As much as I hate that punk-ass Jamie Varner, I thought Jamie Varner was going to beat him. But he is just an animal, and I don't think they'll give him the title, the winner of... Sorry, my eye itches. But I don't think he'll get the winner of Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard. Though I wouldn't complain if they gave him a title shot. I think he kind of deserves it. He jumped into the UFC facing very tough guys and Mark Bocek and now Jim Miller, you know, and he beat them both. You know, he didn't stop them, but, you know, I want to talk about that. Okay. Y'all all know the Cody. He doesn't like how some wrestlers use their wrestling in MMA just to hold people down. Ben Henderson uses his wrestling like you should in MMA. You take them down and you beat the holy hell out of them. That is what Ben Henderson does. He didn't do it against Cerrone, but to his, you know, you know, Donald Cerrone kept throwing up submissions at him, so I could kind of understand. So, but now I just caught myself in my own web. People are going to say, well, that's what Anthony Pettis was doing to Clay Guida. No, trust me on this one. That fight, the Cerrone and Henderson one fight compared to Pettis and Guida, totally different thing, so I don't want to hear it. Anyway, but Ben Henderson, that is how you should use your wrestling in MMA. I applaud you. Thank you. That's how you do it. I respect him a lot for that because he doesn't lay and prey on people like, you know, the Guidas, the Fitches, the Maynards, the Sonens, and whoever else, like Evans, you know. So, anyway. Yeah, but, I don't think he'll get the title shot, though I would have no complaints if he did get it. I think he deserves it. And as far as what's next, a lot of people, I kind of don't like this because I'm a big Melvin Guillard fan, but people are saying that Melvin Guillard is going to walk Joe Lozon, and then those two should fight for an official #1 contender status. But if I'm not mistaken, I do believe the Guillard-Lozon fight is on the same card as the Maynard-Edgar fight. So when the winner of the new champion, I'm not saying Gray Maynard is going to win. I was just kind of thinking that because of the draw, the title was vacated, but it was not. Edgar is still the champion. So when the champion emerges, there we go, from that fight card, and say Guillard does win, you know, and you have two top contenders who both deserve title shots sitting there waiting there. So if you have them fight, do you go ahead and risk letting the champion not fight for a while? So that's where there's a dilemma. That's why I totally disagreed with Jim Miller getting Ben Henderson. I think Jim Miller should have been given a title shot, should have sat there and waited for the winner of Edgar and Maynard and then fought him, and then Henderson and Guillard could have fought instead of Guillard and Lozon. So, but that's just the lightweight division. It's going to be in a flux, but like I said, I would like to see Ben Henderson fight Clay Guida. Clay Guida, you know, Clay Guida defeated Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis defeated Ben Henderson. So, you know, that would be a good fight. Same thing with Jim Miller. If they want to put Jim Miller against Clay Guida, that would be a good fight. I think both Henderson and Miller would beat Guida. So, there's Gleison Tebow is, you know, he's still running around out there. You know, Ben Henderson can fight him, but I believe Tebow is fighting Rafael Dos Anjos, and if it wasn't for this latest loss by Soteropoulos, that would be a good fight to see between Henderson and Soteropoulos, but it would kind of be pointless because Soteropoulos is on a 2-fight skid. So, yeah. Like I said, I don't know with this lightweight division. It's going to be, you know, really tough to, electricity, man. That wasn't an effect that I did. But, yeah, the lightweight division's in a flux. We'll just have to wait it out and see what happens. So, if Lozon, God forbid, beats Melvin Guillard, then Henderson will probably get the next title shot without a doubt. That's what I think UFC is doing, to wait to see what Guillard does before they decide. So, yeah, anyway, now moving on to the main event. Chris Lights Out Lytle taking on Dan the Outlaw Hardy. Chris Lytle announced before the UFC Versus card that this would be his last fight. He is going to be retiring. I was sad to see it because, honestly, I truly believed in Chris Lytle. I thought Chris Lytle was going to be the Cinderella story. He was on a big win streak before he fought and lost to Brian Ebersol, who, I guess, the way he fought Ebersol, he must have not known much about him, because I think his game plan against Ebersol was poor, and I didn't like how he fought Ebersol. That's, you know, no disrespect to Brian Ebersol, you know, after fucking up Dennis Hallman the way he did, I have a lot more respect for him, but I'm just saying, I just think that Chris Lytle came in with a bad game plan for a guy like Ebersol, and that's why he lost. But anyway, as we're saying, I thought he would have the Cinderella story. I actually picked him to beat Condit in a decision. I think he would have been more aggressive. He would have been the one going for takedowns in that fight, and I thought he would have beat Condit. And I thought he was eventually going to get to a title shot. Not saying he was going to win, but just to get to a title shot after the way your career has gone in the UFC, that would have been very impressive. I would have loved to see it, and I still thought it had a chance, you know. But no, he wants to focus on his family, and you know, he talked about getting back into being a fireman because he's a former fireman. You know, everyone calls that you know, everyone talks about him being a former fireman, you know, so, yeah, but anyway, getting to the fight itself, great fight. It was kind of back and forth, even though Chris Lytle landed more punches. Dan Hardy kept on hitting Lytle, so he couldn't keep putting Lytle in bad spots. He rocked him not once, not twice, but 3 times, even knocking him down at one point. Well, he didn't really knock him down, but Chris Lytle was on Queer Street in one of those punches, and he, you know, but I believe, you know, I hate to say it, but I believe if Dan Hardy was a little bit more aggressive instead of trying to be the counter puncher, I think he could have easily won this fight and maybe even easily knocked Chris Lytle out. But I want to kind of talk about why in the blue hell he decided to shoot in for a takedown. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think he did against Marcus Davis, but I might be but has he ever shot in on a takedown for anyone? I mean, he didn't do it against Akihiro Gono. He didn't do it against Mike Swick. He might have done it against Marcus Davis. I'm not entirely sure. He didn't have to do it against Rory Markham. But, yeah, but I want to know why he shot him for a takedown. And that was his second attempt at a takedown. Lytle stuffed both of them. But the second one, Lytle latched on that guillotine, and he has a very good guillotine. He fought Ronald Junn, I believe it was back at, I think it was UFC 49. He fought Ronald Junn and submitted him with a very good guillotine. And he has a sick guillotine. You saw him latch it on, and I thought Dan Hardy was going to go to sleep because when he fought GSP, he didn't want to submit. He didn't want to tap. So, yeah, but it was a very impressive victory by Chris Lytle, I think. But I think Chris Lytle would have won the decision anyway. Although it would have been very close, because like I said, Dan Hardy did rock Chris Lytle a few times in that fight. But he would have went on to win a decision anyway. But I just think he was able to latch on that submission because of a poor executed takedown attempt by Dan Hardy. So, yeah, man, I wish Chris Lytle was still fighting because there are so many fights I would like to see him in. I would have loved to see him against Carlos Condit. I mean, people even talked about on the forums how they think the fight of the century would be BJ Penn versus Chris Lytle, and I would have personally loved to see that one too. So, but he retired. He's a great fighter, very well-rounded, very crisp boxer. He had a 13-1-1 record as a boxer. You know, he's not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he could easily be one because he's very well versed on the ground. Sick guillotines. He has sick arm bars. Though I don't think he's ever won by armbar in the UFC, but I believe he's won a couple by arm bars before his time in the UFC. But he's gonna be missed in the UFC. I wish he was still fighting, but he said it was the right time to retire. You know, go out with a bang, which he did. Very entertaining fight. One of my favorite Chris Lytle moments, I'll never forget this. I have the DVD. I watched the fight on occasion. His fight with Robbie Lawler. That had to be one of the craziest fights ever because, let me tell you something. If you've never seen that fight, go watch it. It was at UFC 45 Revolution. It's known. The main event was Matt Hughes versus Frank Trigg 1. And they fought in a stand-up war, beating the hell out of each other, and then it just started to where they just were like, you know, Robbie Lawler's flexing and Chris Lytle was clapping, and at one point in the fight, and I kid you not, if you've not seen the fight, go watch it. Robbie Lawler catches Chris Lytle with a big punch, planting him on his ass. And as Chris Lytle is falling to the ground, he's clapping. He's like, oh yeah, that was good. I was like, what the fuck? How the fuck? What the fuck? He just clapped. Robbie Lawler didn't go in for the kill or nothing. He just sat there and clapped, and he's like, good job, you knocked me on my ass. I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with him? But that was a crazy fight, because that kind of happened a few times, except without the, the knocking down part. But that had to be my favorite Chris Lytle fight, and my favorite Chris Lytle moment was that fight. He was also very impressive against Thiago Alves. Thiago Alves beat him by cut, but he was winning that fight. Go watch it, UFC 78. He took on Thiago Alves, and he was beating Thiago Alves, and everyone says Thiago Alves is the best chance to beat George St. Pierre. Go watch that fight, and Chris Lytle will show you what's up, because he was winning that fight on the feet. He was getting hit with very vicious leg kicks, but he was winning that fight before that cut. So, he's had setbacks in his career. Who hasn't? He was riding a wave of victory when he fought Josh Koscheck, and Josh Koscheck beat the crap out of him. And, same thing with Brian Ebersol. He just ran into Brian Ebersol. Brian Ebersol has proved to be a beast. So, but we're all gonna miss Chris Lytle. Wish he was still fighting. Would love to see Carlos Condit. Would love to see BJ Penn. Would love to see a rematch with Matt Hughes, because I believe he got robbed in that fight, because Matt Hughes did do the Guida Fitch Maynard thing back at UFC 68 to Chris Lytle. But he's gonna be missed. I'm sad that he's retiring. And that was UFC on Versus 5. Like I said, where does Dan Hardy go from here? Maybe fight Mir Sadala. He says he's going to take a long layoff because, he wants to kind of reassess his career, like I said CB Dollaway should do. And I think that's a good idea. Maybe sharpen up his skills a little bit, and maybe he can get back to the winning track. So, yeah, that was UFC on Versus 5. I spent half an hour talking about it. I'm sorry I talked so much, and I'm the Cody, and next topic. Our next topic is, before the UFC on Versus 5 card, we found out that world-renowned MMA trainer, striking coach, Sean Tompkins passed away at the age of 37. One of the fighters that he trains, and good friend John Gunderson, who fought in the UFC once before, found him and he wouldn't wake up, and he passed away, and they believe it was problems with his heart, and heavy hearts for the MMA world. Sean Tompkins is one of few trainers that are not really high profile that I actually know about. Sean Tompkins is a master, is a very, very good striking coach. I asked Tim Lee this question because I wasn't so sure about it, because when Forrest Griffin left The Ultimate Fighter, he went to Extreme Couture, and that is where Sean Tompkins did, the latter part of his striking coach, but then he kind of peeled off from Extreme Couture and went and did his own thing. But I asked Tim Lee this, he didn't really get back to me, so did he train Forrest Griffin? Because if he did, let's just pretend that he did. Because this is how good Sean Tompkins is. Go watch The Ultimate Fighter 1 finale between Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. Okay, watch that fight, and then go watch the rematch at UFC 62, and then you will see a vast difference in each fight. Forrest Griffin was known as a slugger. He had some decent boxing, but it wasn't really crisp and fluid. But then he goes and fights Stephen Bonner, gets trained by Sean Tompkins, I think, and we saw what happened. He dominates Bonner with crisp combinations, pinpoint accuracy, and just ability to, move in and out of the pocket without taking much damage. So, same thing with his fight with Rashad Evans. Outstruck Rashad Evans for 2 rounds before he ended up getting knocked out. And same thing with Rampage Jackson. Even though I still will stand by the statement that he lost that fight, he did do very good against one of the best pure boxers in MMA, in Quentin Rampage Jackson. So, if Sean Tompkins did train Forrest Griffin, you could see you could see the big difference between Forrest Griffin then and now the Forrest Griffin of today, and that just shows what a great trainer Shawn Tompkins was. Also, he did invite the head case that we all knew from The Ultimate Fighter 8, Junie Brownie, to live in his home with him and his wife, who is Sam Stout's sister, which I thought was a joke, but Tim Lee told me that it wasn't, and I was like, wow, he really is married to Sam Stout's sister. And yeah, but he invited Junie Brownie to stay there, and I believe he is behind. If it wasn't for Shawn Tompkins, I believe Junie Brownie would have lost his UFC debut to Dave Kaplan at the Ultimate Fighter 8 finale, and since then he did kind of, spaz out of the UFC. He's gone on, I think he's gone 1-3 since leaving the UFC, but Junie Browning does still have that typical combination footwork that Shawn Tompkins is known for, but if he could just shape up, he could be a very good fighter. Other notable fighters that Shawn Tompkins has trained, of course, Sam Stout, John Gunderson. He is also behind the pinpoint, accurate, fluid greatness in striking that is Mark Hominick. Mark Hominick, probably, even though he lost to Jose Aldo, probably the best striker at featherweight, and Shawn Tompkins is behind that. If I've never seen Mark Hominick fight before he trained with Shawn Tompkins, so I can't really give you a reference between now and then, but you could just see they call Shawn Tompkins the master of combinations. He is just good at just teaching you, like, from going from one strike to another very quickly, and that is what Mark Hominick does. That is what Sam Stout does. And Shawn Tompkins was an elite striking coach. Like I said, might be, I'm not entirely sure, behind the success of Forrest Griffin, and he trained Mark Hominick, Sam Stout, and John Gunderson. And he will be truly missed. MMA is losing one of the greatest, if not the greatest, striking coach of all time. He did have an MMA career back in the old days, but unfortunately I do believe that he never won an MMA fight, though he gave it a shot, but he might have just said, hey, coaching's my forte. But he was 37 years old, he was a Canadian, he's going to be, like I said, he's going to be missed. MMA's losing a great trainer, and my heart goes out to his family, to his fighters, and to everyone else close to Tompkins. But we'll be seeing you, buddy. Okay, it has been reported, though Dana White will not confirm or deny, but it has reported that UFC has inked a big multi-year deal with Fox, and of all of Fox affiliate channels, which I think is a huge, huge, huge move for the UFC. Fox is a basic cable network. It's not like a Time Warner cable network where you need a box or any kind of. It's like basic antenna cable. It's known for the home of NFL and MLB, and NBA does not play on Fox. It plays on TNT and all that. So, but This is the big step the UFC is waiting for. They've been waiting for another TV deal. Spike TV was a good start, but Fox is a truly, truly bigger step, because that is what, like I said, that is where the Super Bowl is most of the time. That's where the Super Bowl is aired, and that's where all the great NFL games come on, and some great MLB action. And UFC has taken that step to be mentioned in the names with those sports and all that, and I think that's a big step. But there's a little con here. So this is what I'm thinking, and a lot of people in the forums that have heard about this deal have talked about it too, is that, does this mean this is the end of The Ultimate Fighter? I think it is, because I don't see Fox, okaying or signing anything that will have that type of reality show on Fox. Since Fox is not really known for reality television, it's known for stuff, other than sports. It's known for, the Chef Ramsay shows, like Hell's Kitchen, and I wouldn't really consider that reality. Like, you got reality shows like Survivor and Big Brother, and yeah. But anyway, my point is, I don't see Fox signing okaying a show like that. So this could be the last Ultimate Fighter, which I can kind of thank God for, because me, the Cody, has been saying that since the Ultimate Fighter 9, that they're not 9, Ultimate Fighter 8, that the Ultimate Fighter should have stopped a long time ago, because now all these winners are really just, they're just really making names, and then they're not winning much. I mean, okay, Ryan Bader, he went on a good win streak. He was undefeated, but now he's lost 2 in a row. Efren Escudero spazzed out, and then you got James Wilkes. I haven't heard from him since he lost his second time in the UFC after losing his debut to Matt Brown. Ross Pearson has only lost once, but he hasn't really fought a top echelon guy, and he's facing Edson Barboza. That's going to be an interesting test, but I think he'll win that one. But let's see, Ultimate Fighter 10, Roy Nelson has only won once, beat Stefan Struve, lost to Dos Santos, lost to Frank Mir. Ultimate Fighter 11, Court McGee. He is about to fight just his second fight since winning the show. He had a tough run against Ryan Jensen, which Ryan Jensen was beating the hell out of him, but he was able to win that fight. But let's see, Ultimate Fighter 12. Who won that one? Oh, Jonathan Brookins. Jonathan Brookins hasn't even fought yet. We've seen a couple guys from the show, like Michael Johnson and all that, and then you have Tony Ferguson from the winner of this past season, But in my opinion, these guys are just starting to become, are just going to be irrelevant people. They'll just fill out a card, and whoever, you can just go find the great fighters fighting at shows. I mean, that's normally where you find them anyway. But the Ultimate Fighter 1, I will stand by this, is the most successful Ultimate Fighter there ever will be. It produced title contenders in Nate Quarry and Kenny Florian. It produced a champion in Forrest Griffin. Chris Lieben is, Chris Lieben is probably one of the most popular guys in all of UFC. Puts on exciting fights. Mike Swick was close to not 1 but 2 title shots. He ran into Yushin Okami and Dan Hardy to keep him from title shots. Who else? Diego Sanchez. He also fight for the lightweight title. He was close to a welterweight title shot once before. It's just, you ain't gonna get any better than the Ultimate Fighter 1. I think they should have. I thought it was okay to do the Ultimate Fighter 2 and 3 and then have the comeback. So yeah, and Ultimate Fighter 5 has produced pretty good fighter. It has produced a title contender itself. I admit that. So, unless you try to have unless you try to have another comeback season instead of UFC veterans have comebacks for former Ultimate Fighter competitors that didn't make it in the UFC, like an Alex Karalexis or let's see, I can't think of a Chris Sanford, like an Alex Schonauer, have like a all-star show and then give those guys a second chance to compete in the UFC. But anyway, this is about Fox. Like I said, this is a big deal. We're going to be seeing some UFC live cards on Fox, and I expect big ratings for some of the fight nights and maybe even the some of the UFC, like the UFC 137 free card or stuff like that. But the Spike TV deal ends at the end of 2011, and then in 2012 is when I expect is probably when the UFC is going to start putting on shows. And now, rumor mill, as Chris Freeze would say. Now, this has not been confirmed by any kind of source or any kind of thing, but I'm just going to throw that out there because a lot of people are thinking something, and people are saying they think that's what's going on with the Alistair Overeem thing. People are saying that if this deal is for real, people are, and a lot of people have come up with this, and which I find kind of odd, so that's why I'm calling it rumor mill. You know, might be a rumor, and it might be true, but they're saying if this Fox deal is true, and it's for real, they think the first Fox Live UFC card is going to feature Brock Lesnar versus Alistair Overeem. How fucking awesome would that be? Like, that would be, that you got your money maker in Brock Lesnar, and then you got one of the best heavyweights in the world, who many people believe is the best, and Alistair Overeem. Two popular fighters colliding on the very first broadcast of the UFC on Fox. It's just a rumor by a lot of fans. A lot of people are talking about in forums, but I've been in multiple forums, and this idea has kind of spiraled, and I don't know if a source started it or just some fan started the rumor, but I doubt it will happen, but that would be absolutely awesome. I did that too well. But that would be an awesome thing. That would be one hell of a way to kick off your deal with Fox. But like I said, it's not likely to happen, but a lot of people are talking about that. But yeah, but like I said, whew, I am hot. This is a big deal for UFC. It's a big step. I'm praying they don't botch it like they did with the CBS card. If you have shit like this, I implore you, you got to make the fight cards good. You don't have to make them all out, put all your big names in there, but you have to make them good. You have to put names in there. You can't just have, like these half-ass main events. Like, no offense to Chris Lido and Dan Hardy, but that's like not a main event type fight. Maybe Henderson and Miller was, but not Hardy and Lido. Not a main event type fight. But it was a great fight, but not main event type. But I hope UFC doesn't botch this deal. It's a big thing, and yeah, we'll just see what happens after 2011. So alright, next topic. But I want to say real fast, I know people are confused by the last topic about the Brock Lesnar Alistair Overeem thing. I'm just going to say this really quick. I found out that Alistair Overeem is not officially cut from his Zuffa LLC contract. That I found out on ESPN.com that Alistair Overeem and Zuffa LLC are in the negotiation process, in quotes. And so he's not officially cut. That's why people still think there's a chance he might fight Brock Lesnar on the first Fox card in 2012. So, yeah, that, if people were confused about that, go check it out on ESPN.com. They talk about Overeem not officially being cut, but now he's negotiating, so yeah. Anyway, but our next topic, I'm going to talk about The Ultimate Fighter. Again, I'm not going to spoil. The fighters that I'm talking about are not officially in the house. They're just notable fighters that, you know. Okay, so The Ultimate Fighter 14 debuts September 21st, and it's going to be Team Bisping versus Team Mayhem. You know, Jason Mayhem Miller taking Chael Sonnen's spot. It was supposed to be Chael Sonnen, but Mayhem taking his spot, and Michael Bisping and Jason Mayhem Miller will fight on the Ultimate Fighter 14 finale. And Jason Mayhem Miller's first fight in the UFC since losing a decision to George St. Pierre at UFC 52. So, it's going to feature featherweights and bantamweights. Although most people are telling me that it's just going to feature featherweights, but and that they only had an open call for featherweights and bantamweights, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But talk about some of the notable fighters. Got my notes right here. Yeah, they're looking right. Okay, notable fighter John the Magician Dodson. He has 11 wins with 5 losses. He's a Greg Jackson product, which I thought was very interesting. He doesn't have any notable wins or any notable losses, but something I found very interesting is that he's never been stopped in his 5 losses, are all by decision, so maybe he's someone to look out for, especially coming from Greg Jackson's camp. Very interesting. Brian Kid Lightning Caraway. I know that name's going to sound familiar because he's fought in the WEC Elite XC and Strikeforce before. He has 15 wins and 5 losses. He has notable losses to Mark Hominick at WEC 46, and a split decision loss to Fredson Paxal at WEC 50, and he has a notable win over Ultimate Fighter 5 alumni Noah Thomas. Next guy, Steven Super Seiler or Siller. I'm gonna go with Seiler just because it sounds cooler. So Steven Super Seiler, he has 18 wins and 9 losses. 12 of his 18 wins have come by submission. He has notable losses to Co Escovedo and top featherweight contender Chad Mendez. He got knocked out by Chad Mendez, one of the few times Chad Mendez actually stops people. So he doesn't have any notable wins. Now, this guy I really want to talk about. Okay, this is the guy, excuse me one second. Okay, never mind, it's nobody. So anyway, my phone was ringing. But, Dennis Bermudez. Okay, I really want to talk about him. Alright, first of all, he's got 7 wins and 2 losses. He has notable wins over, he has a notable win over Shannon Gugarty, who is a UFC veteran, fought Spencer Fisher before. He has a notable loss to Drew Fickett. Now, this is the interesting part. He fought 8 times in 2010. The normal fighter rate for a fighter to fight in 1 year is 4. 3 to 4 times a year. He doubled that and fought 8 times. Granted, 2 of those fights came in one night because he was in a tournament where he lost to Drew Fickett. But another thing interesting is that he just had his first professional fight in 2009. Okay, so then he goes into 2010 and he fights 8 different times. And he also fought in back-to-back days. He fought February 4th. No, wait, excuse me. February 5th. And then fought the next day on February 6th in the same year. So that dude was that interested me a lot, and I think he's a guy to watch out for. I'm gonna call him the dark horse if he's able to get into the house, because like I said, you have to fight your way into the house this year. So if he gets into the house, he is definitely a dark horse to watch out for. I mean, 7-2. His 2 losses have just come recently, you know, in his last 2 fights. So he was undefeated for quite a bit throughout the, you know, 8 times he fought in 2010, which is unbelievable. So, and especially to fight on back-to-back days and then back-to-back months. Okay, next fighter, Dustin Pegu, or Peg, we'll say Peg. Okay, he has 9 wins, 4 losses. He's a Ring of Combat featherweight champion, being a champion anywhere, you know. I guess that's some kind of credential, you know. So, he doesn't have any notable wins, but he has a notable loss to Dean Thomas, which is funny because Dean Thomas tried out for this Ultimate Fighter. He wanted to get back into the UFC, and he thought a good way to do it was through the Ultimate Fighter, because he's had an up and down career since leaving the UFC. So he tried to get back in, he didn't make it, according to people. Also, Kit Cope tried to get into back in there, tried out. So excuse me. Yeah. So, and now a guy that he defeated is getting a chance to get in the house. So I thought that was very interesting. Okay, probably the most experienced guy this season, Dustin Neese. He kind of is what JDH and Chris Freeze called the Baroni line, even though it's called the Mendoza line. They call it the Baroni line. We'll go with the Baroni line. He has 22 wins and 17 losses. But 18 of the 22 wins have come by submission, so that's very impressive. He has notable losses to Jeff Curran. He lost to Jeff Curran at Strikeforce and M1 Global Fedor versus Rogers. And he also lost very early in his career to Mike Brown by guillotine choke. He doesn't have any notable wins, though. And now the people that, a guy who, if he makes it into the house, could definitely be the favorite. Eric the Machine Marriott. He's a Bellator veteran. He has 20 wins and 5 losses, probably the most impressive record so far that I've seen. He has notable wins and losses to Ryan Roberts. Ryan Roberts fought Marcus Aurelio in the UFC. He has notable wins also over Chris Mickle and Ultimate Fighter, I believe 12 or 13. I think it was 12, runner-up Michael Johnson. So he might be the favorite, you know, if he can get into the house, which he probably would. I mean, fighting in Bellator, winning in Bellator, having a record that's 20-5, pretty impressive. He's a wrestler, so he's probably like Gray Maynard or John Fitch or something. He wrestles the hell out of people. But yeah, those are the notable guys. You know, watch out for him. Again, John the Magician Dotson, excuse me, Brian Kid Lightning Caraway, Steven Super Seiler, Dennis Bermudez, Dustin Pegg, Dustin the Beast Nice, and Eric the Machine Marriott. So those are some of the notable guys, and watch out for them. See if they can get into the house. I still am just flabbergasted by this Dennis Bermudez guy. I would love to see him get into the house because I think he can do some damage. Fighting how? He must have incredible conditioning to fight 8 times in 2010 and on back-to-back days and in a tournament no less. So yeah, so that's going to be the Ultimate Fighter 14 debut September 21st. Will probably be the last one, you know, because this Fox deal is happening and don't see Fox taking the reins of the Ultimate Fighter. So yeah, so that's the Ultimate Fighter. Enjoy. And now to close out the show of this very long show, and I might have to do some editing because it might be too long, but the Cody's MMA question of the week. Sorry, no, the Cody's Corner don't have anything to complain about, and I really don't feel good, so I don't feel like getting all angry. So the Cody's MMA question of the week. No one answered last week's question, which I expected. Thanks, guys. Love you too. All 2 of my fans. I think it's 2 now. It was 3, but you know, I don't think JDH watches my show. Pouty face. Yeah, I just did that. I'm sorry. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. It's something my girlfriend does to me, and it works, so I just thought I'd just do it to you and be like, you know. But I'm a dude, so I guess that's why not. Okay, anyway, so this question of the week is going to be different. I have a Facebook page up, a Facebook fan page for the Cody's MMA Uncensored. Go check it out on Facebook. You know, Tim Lee likes it, I like it, and those are the only 2 likes it has. But if you want to answer the question, the poll will be up there. This is the question. Okay, I will have the poll on the Facebook page. It will be yes or no. Click yes, no. I'll talk about it next week. Okay. Eddie Alvarez, Bellator lightweight champion. He's fought some tough guys, beaten some tough guys. He lost to Shinya Aoki, and he beat the hell out of Roger Huerta and Pat Curran. Pat Curran, another great fighter that I was surprised that he was able to beat the way he did. So, my question to you is this. Could Eddie Alvarez be a top contender in the UFC? I'm not saying could he be the lightweight champion. I'm just saying, could he be the top contender? Could he go into the UFC and be in the league of the Hendersons, the Gallards, the Edgars, the Maynards, the Cerrone, well, okay, but the BJ Penns, you know, the Gilbert Melendez? Could he go in there and be a top contender and get himself in line to get a title shot? Could he go in there and do that? Or will he kind of be like Jorge Santiago? Jorge Santiago kicks everyone's ass outside the UFC, but then when he gets into the UFC, he loses. Will that be Eddie Alvarez's fate? So my question, could Eddie Alvarez be a top contender in the UFC? Yes or no? And we'll talk about it next week. And I'll give you what I think, that way so people don't copy my answers right now. So, and with that, this will close today's episode of the Cody's MMA Uncensored. Sorry, it's a day late. I'm sick. It's hot. I didn't feel like doing. I couldn't really get it done last night, so I did it now. Okay, so all right. You know, the views shot up in the last episode really quickly to 22 within 1 hour, and I thought I was on my way to getting 50 or maybe 100 views, but it stopped at 25. So, but you know, guys, it ain't the greatest show on the earth, but you know, I'm having a hard time. I just really want to get an upstart on something. I just want to do something that I know is like cool and people like, and you know, help me get my views out there. Tweet about it, you know, post it on Facebook, post it on MySpace if people still have a MySpace. You know, tell me how to make the show better. Go follow me on Twitter, tweet me at @thecody18. Tell me how to make the show better. www.facebook.com/thesportscody, or in the comment section below. Tell me how to make the show better. I'll listen to you. I'll, you know, take it in consideration, try to change it up. Give me a topic to talk about. Tim Lee does it. Tim Lee, Dr. MMA Tim Lee, he gives me topics to talk about, even though I didn't talk about none of his this week, but maybe I'll get to it next week. But give me a topic and I'll talk about it. Ask, you know, maybe at the end of every show, I'll have questions from my two fans, and I'll answer them. They could be personal, they can be about my opinion about something about MMA, or, you know, I know some of you might like football, baseball, and basketball. You know, ask me questions about that. I know a lot about football. Not so much about baseball, somewhat a bit better than basketball. So, I know, you know, ask me questions about that. Ask me anything you want, and maybe I'll start a segment where I answer fans' questions. So, yeah, like I said, tell me how to make the show better. Help me out. Put me wherever people you think will view it. Put me in a forum, whatever. Help me get some views, and let's make the Cody's MMA Uncensored the show to watch. Alright, but I'm the Cody. You're my fans. I love you all. Thank you for your support. And yeah, I think that's it. Love you guys. Peace. Until next week.